I think civil society plays an important role at the COP, but I think that the main place where they need to lobby is back home. And it has to start a long time before the delegations go to COP. That's when the decisions are made, that's when the primary positions are set, and that's also when the red lines are put. And you want the ambitions to be as high as possible, and you want the red lines to be as low as possible, and you want them to not be very strict. Right now, I think it's very important that civil society looks into the text and pushes all the representatives here that are negotiators on the most progressive options. If I should give three pieces of advice, I would say one, be prepared, two, choose the persons that you're approaching wisely, and three, know what you're talking about.
Let me tell you the other way around. I don't think parties need to use you. You know, parties and governments work for people. So it's people that need to know how to advise and how to make us from the government work. You know, for example, Mexican delegation requested a meeting yesterday with the civil society to ask you to help us, because we are in the same agenda and we want to do the same. And personally, what I think is exactly that we shouldn't draw a line. You know, it's very important. Very important to feel that we are part of the same team. Know your people, know your counterpart, and dialogue. Approach. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but it's so important to know exactly the message that you want to share, and then to know how to approach it to the recipient of that message. You know, because in the way that you approach it to me is the same way that I will hear to you. And this is not only because of governments and civil society or young people or youth. It's normally when you come to your mom and you want something, you know how to approach, right? When you want to get something from, I don't know, your teacher, or it's the same.
It's a process that starts and never ends, and that needs to take place way before the COPs, because the COP is basically the end of a chain of decision making, but it's not the highest. It's not necessarily the area where decision makers have the most leeway. And so the lobbying by civil society and youth organizations in particular needs to be a constant process at the local, regional, national, European, if you're in the European Union, levels. And so once you get to COP, it's not that it's too late, but you've already gone through most of the decision-making process. And so the object, the goals that should be set for lobbying organizations, for civil society, are specific milestones throughout the year on specific objectives. At the COP, the civil society actions, lobbying should take many different forms. That's the way to be as efficient as possible from A to Z, both doing actions that catch the attention of the press, that get the attention of negotiators, proposals on different positions in specific areas of the text. Those are also very important, and also trying to relay things into the general public, into the general public's opinion. Being on all fronts is necessary. We're at a stage where we need to accelerate positive action in general, and to accelerate the transition to a low-carbon economy. That means that the lobbying needs to also be in all realms. And at the COP, even though a lot of the decisions are already made, the negotiators, the ministers, and the heads of state need to feel the pressure of civil society. And that pressure, you must use all of the forms of communication that we have at our disposal. Focus on saying to those around you how being sustainable has a positive influence on you individually in your life. That will lead also to more action towards general interest, but once you commit to sustainability, it has positive effects individually on purchasing power, on well-being, on health, on the links that you have with your friends, family. It is just an overall more positive paradigm for life tomorrow in a very general sense. And once you are able to transfer that message, convey the message that sustainability is good for me individually in my everyday life, I think that you will see much more commitment spread across the world, village, and society at all levels.
So my consistent message during this debate and this panel was that you've really got to target the national level or even the city level. Target your local politician, target your local representative. Whoever speaks for you on the political stage, make sure that you're talking to them. So often by the time that we get to the multilateral level, it's too late because, as was pointed out during this discussion, negotiators come here with red lines, with mandates that are defined perhaps and often rightly so at the national level where people are able to influence decisions. So make sure that you're there. But then also, as I pointed out on the panel, we need to have a flow of information. So also make sure that you're going and talking to delegates here and that you're bringing that information back to those who might be electing officials at the national level, maybe people who aren't here. Make sure that they understand what their representative has said here, and that there is a follow-through, that they've elected a person and that person goes and does their job here. And I think that's a really critical role that youth can play is that transparency role. Yeah, it's a challenging one. Again, I think talking to people, reading, knowing your history. I think history is fascinating. You can often see why the process is so complicated or why groups are called the most ridiculous names if you understand. I mean, we have a Durban platform. Well, actually, if you go and read the history and if you use the UNFCCC website, they're getting a lot better at communicating the history of their processes. So just make sure that you knew that there was a meeting in 2011 in Durban, South Africa, and that'll help you understand why there is this ridiculous name called the Durban Platform that we then call the ADP, and it helps to give some sense to the acronyms. So I think know the history, put that colour back in, realise that these were real events happening in real places. Again, I would say keep voting. That's really critical. I think you have to stay engaged at the national level if you want to see your government continue to have ambitious climate policies. Then that's critical. Yeah, that would be my main takeaway message.